All right, everybody, welcome. Justice is a process here, and we are here for our Justice Watch Live. First off, I want to begin by apologizing for not getting on last night. Um, Unforeseeable circumstances led to just not being able to go. That's how some nights will be, but my goal is to try to come up and talk nightly with you, and it's meant to be more of an open format where I want interaction from the audience. Unlike when we're watching a trial where we're trying to listen and take things in, we're going to watch videos. I'm going to react to videos. We're going to talk about the videos that we're watching. So I want to hear from you guys. So please feel free to, leave me a comment in the chat there, and we'll talk about it. Leave me a thought. Hello, Pamela. How you doing? And let's talk. Let's chat. So, first thing I want to do, the first thing we're going to do is anytime the last video I had a comment that I want to address, and I'll do that from time to time. So if you watch on the replay, be sure to leave me a comment because I'm going to address comments and things. So the first thing we're going to do is do that. That's how we're beginning the show, addressing any comments from the last show we had. And if you didn't catch that, we watched the Kenneth DeHart um, uh, body cam, dash cam footage. It's some pretty graphic stuff. He's an individual who shot a police officer down in South Carolina, and it's not good. But we watched it, and a viewer had some feedback. So I want to address that feedback. I did address it. I did write back, but sometimes there's things that you want to say necessarily that are easier to say than writing back. But anyways, let's do that, and then we're going to jump in our main event tonight, the main topic tonight that we're going to talk about, and then depending on time, we'll watch. See if we can watch some other things and react to some other things. But the big thing we're going to be watching tonight is Vinnie Politan. This was right after the trial of Franklin Tucker, and Vinnie Politan absolutely took apart the prosecutors. A viewer sent this to me. I appreciate the send there. And Paul Perkins is his name, and he sent it to me, and I really appreciate it because this is some explosive stuff. I had no idea that Vinny was aware of the case or was doing this, or he was as aware and had the feelings quite like he did. But it's good because I think this bodes well, and like I had suggested to Ty, in previous conversations, said, when you file your motion to dismiss, you need to get it to Vinnie Politan because, I think he's going to take an interest in it. So, anyways, without further ado, let's jump into reviewing the comment here of the viewer here. Hopefully, you can see that. Hopefully, it's coming through. So we have viewer Daisy Hogan. She said this was the comment that she talked about, and I'm going to respond to it as we go. It's pretty detailed here. It's a nice little comment. It says, elevate to disrespect. Disrespect was inherently there because he refused an order given by an authority figure. Yes, he did. The escalation occurred because the driver knew he had a gun in the car, and that was the reason for refusing a physical search. And yes, while I acknowledge that was true when I was going through this in the video, but the thing is, that officer didn't know that there was a gun in the car. He did know that this gentleman had a past history of having firearms, but he didn't know that these are facts that are known after the fact. So my point is that this that incident, the death, the shooting itself could have been avoided had the police officer on the scene. Now, the young lady on the scene, she was not escalating the situation. It was when the male officer comes on the scene that he escalates things faster and quicker and without really knowing what's going on. He just jumps on and starts screaming at the guy, get out of the car, get out of the car, and it takes it up to the next level. My point is in that situation, nobody knew there was a gun in the car. Nobody knew what was in the car. We just had a guy on the side of the road who's confused about why he's being searched. And if we have better training on how to de-escalate that situation and how to say, okay, instead of coming in yelling and screaming and angry and mad, we come in and we say, okay, let's try to just talk this out, be reasonable, and figure out how we can resolve this in a way that doesn't lead to the violence that occurred. And they immediately jumped to getting the taser out and tasering him out of the vehicle. When what I was just saying, there wasn't circumstances that, in my opinion, at that particular moment said we have to elevate this to tasering. Yes, he wasn't being compliant. And just like we would say to the gentleman who says, I don't want my car searched, but your car gets searched anyways, the officer says, that's fine, don't be compliant, but now you're going to get a charge of obstruction. Now you're going to get a charge of resisting arrest. Now you're going to get, you're just stacking up your charges. Eventually, we're going to get you out of the car. Eventually, we're going to arrest you. The issue is we have the authority complex where it's like, I said get out now and you didn't get out right now, so now I'm going to. We're going to watch a video tonight, potentially, if we have time, where an officer broke a lady's jaw, right? And because she wasn't complying with what he said and she was confused with what was going on, and he ends up punching her in the face 3 times. Now, he didn't lose his job, but he got reprimanded, and there's a $1 million lawsuit against the police department. But the point of the matter is, why do we need to escalate it in these situations to the degree when we don't have somebody who's displaying a weapon, they're not being physically aggressive to the police officer? Again, charge them. Right? Add to the charges, and they can get litigated in court, and that's going to be a huge problem for them when they go to court, or they get they get 13 charges instead of 1, or maybe none, because of all the different things that they didn't do. But we have to be training the officers that, listen, we're not teaching lessons by escalating this thing. We teach the lesson when this individual ends up in court, and we go in, and they end up convicted of felonies when it was just a misdemeanor, or maybe even just a traffic stop that now escalated. They escalated it by not cooperating, and they're learning the hard way. They don't need to be taught by physically being beaten up or dragged out of their car. It just doesn't need to happen, and that's why we need to have the training. And when you've got 2 people on the side of the road, one is somebody breaking the law, and one is somebody that's supposed to be the cooler head, supposed to be the authority figure, supposed to be the one enforcing the law, we would expect that person would be the one that you would say, you're going to be the one that's going to have to uh, you know uh, be the one that's going to have to draw back a little bit, not the one that's going to escalate, right? Because you're the police officer, you're the one on the scene, you're the peacemaker. They call you a peace officer for a reason, because you're coming on the scene and you're supposed to be trained in how to handle this situation and keep it from going to the next level, not coming onto the scene and taking it to the next level like Derek Chauvin did, like other officers did, who come running onto the scene and think, I've got to escalate this thing. You've got to listen to me. I'm a police officer. I'm going to start asserting myself. I'm going to start screaming at you. So he was a known felon and was not allowed to have a gun in his possession. His intent was to avoid jail, absolutely, but he was going to go to jail regardless. That's my point. I mean, he was going to eventually find his way to jail. And you call for backup, you get more people on the scene, you talk to him, you make him understand, listen, this is what we need you to do. And right now, you're stacking the charges against you. Right now, you might not have gone to jail, but now you're for certain going to go to jail. And I need you to get out of the car, or there might come a point where we have to physically remove you from the car because but we don't want to do that at this moment. Especially, but to me, these officers should have been like, if this is a guy who could have a weapon in the car, he could, he could, he could be armed. We don't know what's going on. We haven't had a chance to really assess the vehicle. At that point, they should have just retreated, in my opinion, and said, okay, fine, we're going to call more officers on the scene if you should choose to leave. I mean, this guy was in an armed standoff in 2004. Had they looked in the record, they would have known this is not a guy that you necessarily want to confront unless you're ready for an armed confrontation. So at that point, it's better to back off, get him, file charges, and then eventually bring him in, and maybe send in at that point vested up SWAT team that can come in and avoid having to have death going on. Give us your solution, since you are quarterbacking this incident and you must know how to handle this better. Hair tests will tell about his drug exposure, even without presence of substance in his possession. Well, the problem with the problem with the problem with the drug test or the hair is it doesn't tell us when. It just tells us sometime over the last period of time you were under the influence of drugs. That does not mean that you're going to that does not mean that you're going to be able to say that he had drugs that night. So that will not answer the question of that. Give me one moment, guys. All right. Sorry about the interruption, guys. I had to take care of something there. But anyways, what I was saying was, you know, the hair test is definitely not going to say whether or not he had drugs that evening, right? But my point is, it really was insignificant at that point because the police had a lawful right to ask him to step out of his vehicle. They had a lawful right. And at the moment that he stops doing that, he's breaking the law. So the point is, once he starts breaking the law, you hold him accountable by charging him for breaking the laws that he's breaking. And then if someone's going to resist, then there needs to be protocols set in the standpoint that you don't just go invade the car and start tasing them, especially if you haven't been able to tell what's in the car, what's around the suspect, and stuff like that. This was problematic in that regard. And the fact that the officer who was on the scene decides, hey, I'm going to come in and we're going to start tasing him, and they're reaching around in the car, that was reckless. And that's my point in what I was trying to say when I was quarterbacking this video. Um, the you know the point is that these um, officers didn't take the time, specifically the male officer, didn't take the time to assess the situation. And I know I've taken courses on policing and what you're supposed to do. And they tell you, one of the big things you're supposed to always do when you come on scene is assess. You don't just run right in and start escalating and run into a blind spot where you don't know who the suspect is you're dealing with. You don't know what's happening. He could have very easily said, all right, sir, just wait here. Let me figure out what's going on. Can I talk to you over here, officer? And had the officer come over there. But he immediately runs on the scene and just starts yelling disrespectfully at the gentleman. So then it says he had nearly a week to arrange a peaceful surrender with an attorney. Why was that not accomplished? He clearly used connections and resources to evade detainment. And yes, he did use resources to do that. And he had nearly a week to arrange a peaceful surrender with an attorney. He didn't arrange a peaceful surrender. In fact, he came out of the house. They surrounded the house that he was at, and he came out. There's videotape on YouTube of his surrender. But the point is, that's why I said, to me, the preliminary hearing went forward. I understand why the judge pushed it forward, because he had an opportunity. I question myself whether or not he's really going to be hiring an attorney or not, or whether he has the resources to. And the fact that small little community he's from, attorneys in the area don't even want to get involved. The private attorneys that were quoting a price to avoid getting involved that's so high that they know he can't afford it. So to me, um, I agree with what the viewer said here. But anyways, my point is, I'm just saying that I don't think the drug test necessarily would have accomplished knowing what was there. Would say whether he used drugs or not. He said he wasn't using marijuana, but really that's irregardless. But they were trying to make a stop. To me, they shouldn't have worried about. They should have just attempted to get him out of the car, saying, listen, we're making we need you to do a few field sobriety tests. We're not going to worry about searching the car at this point. And once they got him out of the car, maybe they could have, they would have been able to search him, and he might have felt a little more comfortable, and maybe they could have got handcuffs on him, and then they could have gone and searched the car. Once they got him in the car, if they would have had a reason to suspect that he was high or on drugs or whatever, the like. But I just feel like these officers, again, the escalation issue, it's an issue of escalating, of not being willing, of not understanding how to de-escalate the situation, so we avoid stuff like this. So, anyways, that is comment number one. So if you see something on here, if you see a video that we're watching, if you see something discussed, please leave a comment, because I'm going to start out any comments, any feedback that we need to discuss. That's what we're going to do to start out the show. So there that is. Now, next, we're going to get into the fun part of the show here. The reason why we're here, and that is for Franklin Tucker video. So give me a moment here. Let me pull that up, and we're all right. So here it is, guys. This was taken from Court TV. So credit Court TV here. We're going to react to this, and this is a segment. It's about I guess it's about what we're going to watch is about 19, 20 minutes. Of his coverage of the mistrial. So let's watch this, and we're going to stop and start as we go through. But watch as Vinnie Politan raises some issues. He was watching closer. He clearly has a strong distrust of what these prosecutors are doing. He takes them down. He questions it, and I love it. I had no idea he did this. I missed it, and it's not available on YouTube because this was a segment. You got to go to Court TV, and you got to have the link to the exact show that it was there. But like I said, credit to my viewer for sending this to me. But let's get started on watching this. Like I said, we're starting to stop and discuss it. But it is some amazing stuff from Vinnie Politan. Here we go. Oh, hold on. I got to turn this.
The jury was deliberating today down in Key West, and the case came to a close. But as you will notice, I'm not wearing a red tie. That's because I really don't consider this a verdict. It's not a verdict. Let me show you what happened here. 4:06 p.m. this afternoon, the judge on the bench. Take a listen.
Judge Jones, we have come to the unfortunate conclusion that we are a hung jury and need guidance on how to proceed. Thank you. Signed, your foreperson.
So the note comes out, then it's time to decide, well, what do we do? What do we do? So at 4:11, the judge brings in the jury and tells them this.
By law, I cannot demand this of you, but I want you to go back into the jury room. Then, taking turns, tell each of the other jurors about any weakness of your own position. You should not interrupt each other or comment on each other's views until each of you has had a chance to talk. After you have done that, if you simply cannot reach a verdict, then return to the courtroom and I will declare this case mistried.
Not exactly a dynamite charge. Back in the old days, the judges would kind of push them towards a verdict. That's a little bit softer there. So now 45 minutes later, the jury back in the courtroom, and this happens.
You remember the Allen charge I read you when we first were notified of this deadlock, and I told you that if you simply cannot reach a verdict, then return to the courtroom and I will declare this case mistried. So that's at this point what I'm going to do. If you all can't reach a unanimous verdict, then I accept that fact. I'm going to declare this case a mistrial.
Mistrial. No red tie. You don't get a red tie for a mistrial. That means they're back to ground zero, back to where they were before the trial started. The jury could not reach a unanimous verdict. And think about it. This is a case, a murder trial, where the defendant's representing himself and was not convicted. That doesn't happen too often, folks. In fact, I don't know if I remember that happening here on Court TV. So, after that happens inside the courtroom, take a look at what happens outside the courthouse.
Actually, what's going through my mind is, like I was just telling you, I want to go home. I want to, see my dog. I've been miss him. But the other thing is, I'm thinking is, as we come back for the second one, I think it's March 7th is when we're going to come back and try it again. I think we're going to do a lot better the second time around. And I'm not so sure about the prosecution, so we'll see. I was hoping for a not guilty, that's true. When the prosecution did what they did in their clothes, that I wasn't, I knew that skewed the odds a little bit. But again, that's not going to happen the second time around. So the second time around, I get to come back with Todd O'Quinn, which I did not. I get to come back with the other witnesses I had, which I did not. So I have a feeling our return for the second round is going to be a lot better than it was the first time. It's the nature of this thing. It's like, okay, no, some people are always going to think I did this, no matter what, right? It doesn't matter. They could come out tomorrow and put billboards up saying Ty didn't do it, right? Some people are always going to feel that way.
And what's really interesting when you think about this for a second, because this is a very unusual situation. Most retrials after a hung jury, it's a huge, huge advantage to the prosecution, because now they know what the defense case is and they can tailor the prosecution to go after that. But what's going to be different in the second case is the second time around, Ty Tucker will be represented by someone that at least has experience trying one murder trial instead of doing it for the very first time, right? So representing himself in the rematch, Ty Tucker believes he learned a few things and will be stronger, but history tells us the prosecution is much, much, much more successful on retrials, but we'll see. This case is breaking all the rules, folks.
And I believe Vinnie is wrong. I mean, I believe they're going to break that rule because, normally what happens is you have the motion to dismiss has not been filed. The trial is not, pre-trial is no longer set for March 7th. There's a new judge involved. So there is a status conference on March 11th. It'll be done by Zoom. And at that time, right now, there's also basically they filed a notice, the pretrial detention, filed a notice with the court, which will have to be taken up at the pretrial conference, where they're alleging that apparently, according to Ty, his ankle monitor, he's been having issues with it, which is part of why he filed the motion. Remember, he filed a motion asking to have the terms of his pretrial release adjusted, right? One of them being come off the ankle monitor. And one of the issues is it's an old ankle monitor. It has problems. He has to fly back to Florida to get it fixed. And there's a bracket on it that's old and has problems. And apparently, finally, it caught up to him. And he was sleeping and it didn't charge. And as a result, it shut off momentarily for like an hour. He plugged it back in. And then I guess, I don't know, there must be some sort of an address issue or something. But I know they sent that out originally, and then he filed that motion, and then they finally resent it back out. But essentially, they have grounds. This new judge would have grounds potentially to revoke his bond. I mean, that's the bottom line. So that's one of the reasons why I was trying to get out some of the information I wanted to get out. There's also going to be this judge at pretrial at the pretrial conference will be able to consider and hear again whether or not there will be a gag order reinstated, which again, I'm working on that video because that's going to be very important, that it's understood publicly by anybody who wants to support Ty or speak with Ty, or speak about the case to people, is understanding how important that gag order was to allowing this case to continue, because the gag order didn't just gag Ty Tucker, his ability to speak. It actually acted as a way for them to seal everything in the case, so that it shut down the ability for outside news agencies like Vinnie Politan, which is one of the reasons why I believe Mansfield was standing up there scared to death, because he knew Court TV was covering this thing and had taken an interest in this thing. He knew that there were news agencies looking around at this thing, interested in, why is this guy going pro se? How did he do so well? How did he get a mistrial? He didn't want them to be able to go in and start looking at this stuff, or see, or be able to get access to some of the information. You want to get everything sealed up again and get an order going. That essentially the way the gag order worked is, when any discovery hit the file, it was sealed automatically for 90 days. Then either side had the ability to put a request in to seal it until the end of the case, or they could let it expire, and then in 90 days it would be available. So essentially, of course, what does the prosecutors in this case do? Every major thing that could have proven Ty Tucker, like Penny Phelps's deposition, Anthea Clay's deposition. I mean, all these different things that were negative, that would have brought attention to the people that were at the time in 2019 who were actively looking at this, because he had the Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, he had all these publications coming down and wanting to look into this case, and they gagged him from being able to talk, and then they sealed all the documents. So as a result, eventually, as they just kind of lost interest in it and went away. And the state just continued to use Judge Jones. The key is, the reason why this is really bad for Judge Jones, and was just one of the reasons why Judge Jones, again, acted the way he did about that gag order and was so flim-flamsy about it, was because he knew that the gag order called that prior to permanently sealing anything until the end of the case, it required him to take these documents in camera and review them in camera. What that basically means is he has to review the contents. He then considers the motion, and then he considers whether or not it needs to be sealed or not. So, meaning he was aware of the contents of all of those documents. So if we found out, so if we see that he's sealing documents that would have, been bad for the state, and he's actively doing that, and then turning around in the motion to dismiss, and then turning around in public hearings, acting as if this is ridiculous. This is, what are you talking about? You're going to need to show the proof, sir. And then acting as a gatekeeper to allowing this stuff to get in, and the public's never aware of it. So if it never makes it in, the public never knows what's going on. It lets the state essentially present what they presented, which was a cherry-picked alternate universe version of the case, alternate universe version of what they had. It was one that was sanitized of all the bad actors and all the people. And again, the public comes in and says, okay, there's always a heavy bias towards the defendant who's charged, right? They're charged. So, we assume because they're charged, there must be some reason that they're sitting in that defendant's chair. And that's exactly what happened here. If you watch and go back and look at the comment section of all the Law and Crime broadcast, and you see it in there, it's like people were very skeptical. People didn't realize that Ty Tucker had been locked up, even though he was out on bond, right? He's been locked up in his apartment or his house, away from the public. He doesn't interact with the public like you or I do. He doesn't have a job that he goes to, because he doesn't need to work based on his situation. His work was basically preparing and looking into his case, but he's not going to restaurants. He's not out at shop. He's not able to even go out and shop for his own clothes. So if he didn't have the resources that he's lucky enough to have because his wife had financial resources, the cost of this is crazy. Like I said, when we went over the motion, I mean, you're talking about almost $500 a month that he has to pay to stay on the monitoring. And it's cost thousands of dollars for them for the last 6 years for this. Anytime there's an issue with his ankle monitor, he's got to fly back to Florida. So the thing is that it's crazy. He's not free. So when we saw him in court, you're seeing a guy that is, not been, he's not been around people. He's in sensory overload. And he's in his courtroom with he's in the courtroom, you know, um, essentially talking to people for the first time, talking to these jurors for the first time. He's out and about. Some of his terms of release were relaxed a little bit. That he was staying in a hotel. He was able to walk around because Judge Jones knew he was there for his trial, and he knew he needed to move around for his defense. Yeah, the point is, some of the things that the way he was characterized by people in the media, by individuals watching the trial, they just didn't fully understand what they were seeing, and how this is. But that's why this gag order is so important. And the other thing they did, the other reason why Judge Jones was worried about the gag order, is they gagged his wife. They gagged Lauren Janae. Now, the problem with that is Lauren Janae is a non-party to the case. And there is case law, okay, specific case law that says you can't do that, right? And he used a case that gagged members of the sheriff's department. But Lauren Janae is not a member of anything. She's not a member of his defense team. She is his wife, but you can't. But she's not a party to the case. She's allowed to express an opinion. She's allowed to talk to the press. She's allowed to talk like I am. It would be like them coming and trying to gag me or gag somebody else who just says, "I've taken an interest in Tyrone's case, and I'm speaking about it," and says, "Hey, we're going to infringe on your First Amendment right to speak." You can't do that. So he knew that was going to be a problem, and that if he issued that gag order, he knew that somebody like myself, somebody like Court TV, would be taking that gag order, putting it up on the screen, and showing it to everybody, and going, "What the hell?" And really, I think who he was afraid of was Vinnie, Politan, and law and crime were all talking to Lauren Janae, and she would have had to say, "I can't talk," and Vinnie Politan would have said, "What? Why? What do you mean you can't talk? I'm gagged." "What do you mean you're gagged? You're not part of the case." Well, that's what they did. And of course, there was a time they actually attempted, okay, and this will outrage and anger you because, like I said, I'm going to bring this up and go through what happened here. I've got the documents on it. But there was a time that they were attempting, because of an interview that was conducted by a New York publication about the case back in like 2020, they were attempting to hold Lauren Janae in contempt, which could have resulted in her going to jail. And they were attempting to, if they would have gone forward with this, it could have been grounds to have put Ty back in jail. Because obviously, if you're not following a court order, that's contrary to pretrial release conditions. So they were trying to use this gag order, and they were trying to use it to not just silence Lauren Janae, but put her in jail, right, for exercising her First Amendment rights to speak about her husband's case, which is absolutely insane. That just shows you, and this is why Ty Tucker says these people are willing to do anything. And that's what they've been through, but they haven't been able to speak about it because that gag order was only just lifted right before the trial started, which is why you're just hearing about all of this, which is why Ty Tucker, when they said, "Why is Ty Tucker, and you hear that in this interview, they're saying Ty Tucker should be more worried about his case." He was talking to the press because he'd been gagged for 6 years. This was the first time the man got to speak to anybody. He was living in silence. He was suffering in silence. He was on home confinement. He couldn't talk to anyone about the case. He couldn't do anything about the case. He could just sit there. He could talk to his attorneys, but he knew there was a huge injustice happening to him. He knew the state of Florida was coming after him. He knew there were all these things that people needed to desperately see. And guess what? He couldn't say a word. So what you saw in this trial was a man who was getting to speak for the first time, literally in 6 years, to the press, to the jury, to the judge, to everyone. So what you saw, what you thought was arrogance, was the frustration of 6 years of silence, 6 years of sitting silently while you were accused of doing heinous, terrible things. 6 years while your wife was forced to sit in silence. 6 years while other people, and nobody knew what was going on. And while the state of Florida tried and tried and tried again, one of the tactics they were trying to do is get him to take a plea. They're trying to do it right now. And I believe that's why I don't think it's coincidental that they send Ty his notice that they're potentially going to be, or that they have the, potential that to violate his bond, and then at the same point they're offering him plea bargains to take an Alford plea and plead this thing out. They desperately want out of this thing. Now, my thing is this: Ty did a great job. Ty's preparing, but I really do truly believe it would be in Ty's best interest if the judge this time is not amenable to having his attorney sit in court and help him do things to get evidence in. Then, if given the choice of going without any attorneys in the courtroom or doing it himself, he's got the attention. He's got people's attention. Court TV knows about the case. They're interested in the case. Everybody's going to be wondering about this case. Everybody's going to be watching it. Let your attorneys come in and take care of this thing, because there are certain ways that things have to be done. And I think sometimes that gets confused, or at least Ty was confused as went back and was rewatching the case. There were times that the judge only wasn't allowing evidence in because there wasn't a foundation being laid. And if you go back and you watch the Hannah Gutierrez trial that we're watching right now, the first couple of days were really boring because they were calling witnesses in to lay the foundation to put the things in that they needed: photographs at the scene, reports, crime reports, because there's certain ways you have to do it. You can't just walk in and say, I have all this and this is what I need to do. You can't just walk in and say, I got these tapes and I got all this and I got this witness. There's a certain way you've got to do it, and lawyers know how to do that. And neither myself nor Ty nor anybody that isn't a skilled lawyer, understanding the specific rules of evidence to get this in, will know how to do that. So that's why, it would be great. But now that doesn't mean if Ty comes in prepared, because the other factor here was he showed up and he was unprepared. He was very unprepared because he had just decided to represent himself, and he wasn't believing that Travis Johnson was going to be showing up at this trial. He talked about this on Civil Law, and he said, hey, I showed up down there thinking Travis Johnson was in the wind. We were going to go to trial. They weren't going to have their witness. He had heard that from his legal advisors down there. They advised him of what he needed to do, and he felt if they don't have Travis, we're going to get a directed verdict. Well, guess what? The state of Florida pulled a fast one on them, and yes, they had Travis. And trial starts, and that's why Ty's unprepared. If you go look back at the dates of his subpoenas, and you look at everything that he did, the subpoena that he filed were all filed the day of court. It's why it was all done in haste, and he's down there literally at the seat of his pants. Now, what that should tell you, though, is that if a guy who has no legal background, he's very little time to prepare, he's literally doing this on the seat of his pants, he testifies with 5 minutes notice because the judge is trying to do some cooked up BS, and he survives cross-examination. He survives the trial, and he gets a mistrial against two very experienced, two of what I understand to be, believe it or not, those two guys in there were, and I don't have any reason to believe they're not good lawyers, that they were the two of the most seasoned, best lawyers that Dennis Ward had, and Ty Tucker beats them essentially and gets a mistrial. So if that tells you about the case, that tells you about how weak the state's case is, which is why, yes, this time I think Ty could absolutely have the potential as long as he's prepared. If he understands how to get all the pieces of evidence in that he needs to, all the things in, lay the foundation, get the reports in, get the custodian of records in, and get the IA reports in, and do all of that and get it in properly and get it before the court and get it before the jury, then, he can beat the case himself. But the reality is, if he gets attorneys in there who know how to argue this thing, he's not even going to need half of those things because the state's case is so weak, it doesn't meet its burden. They can't meet the burden. And that's part of the reason why we ended up at a mistrial. Anyways, let's continue watching. Sorry, I went off on a rant there, but it gets me upset when I start hearing these things. But let's continue listening to Vinnie because, like I said, he takes down the prosecutors very, very well here.
So joining us tonight, Ty Tucker's wife, Lauren Janai, joining us from across the country. Lauren, nice to see you tonight. Thank you for joining us. First, your reaction to this non-verdict.
I can't say it's a surprise. You know, I felt like, obviously what I wanted was a acquittal, not guilty, just to be done with. But at the same time, I understand that, you know, jurors have to do what jurors have to do. I think it's a win for Ty. I think the state attorney's office should be a little bit embarrassed that they kind of lost to somebody who's pro se. And I'm just relieved for the moment that, you know, Ty was not found guilty.
Have you spoken to Ty today?
I have.
And what's your take on where he is right now? Not like physically where he is, but like where he is mentally tonight.
I think he feels relieved that he was not taken out of the court in handcuffs. You know, I think he feels like it was a win, that he did a good job. He made mistakes, but did a good job. I think he maintains the state doesn't have a good case. And that was shown with this verdict or not verdict. And I think actually what he said to me was like, oh, they want to go another round? Okay, let's do this.
Now, from your perspective,
so he's ready to fight again.
Ready to fight again? And what are the thoughts in preparing for that? Getting some help?
I have a lot of thoughts.
Hello, Dolores. Welcome.
I mean, Ty's case did not go as I would have wanted it to. You know, I think Ty, you know, in all honesty, I think Ty made a lot of mistakes. I don't think he was prepared. At the end of the day, I think those details didn't matter because the state's case is so weak. But at the same time, if we're going to go another round, we're going to do this again. I mean, I would hope that Ty would be better prepared. He'd have witnesses lined up. There was a bunch of witnesses that he could have used that for one reason or the other, it didn't happen. But hopefully on a second go around, you know, it's going to be a much, much stronger defense case. I guarantee you that.
And just from my experience, I mean, prosecutors do it as well. Like when the prosecutor tries a case, we have investigators like from the prosecutor's office who help coordinate things, gather up witnesses, make sure they're there, keep track of them, all of that. And in the trials that I've covered, there are defense investigators that do the same thing. And a lot of them used to work for prosecutors' offices, et cetera. Just throwing the thought out there that those services do exist.
Believe me, I know. and believe me, I was like, just let me help even. Come on, you can't do this by yourself. You're crazy. You know,
so he's literally trying to do it all by himself. He's like, is he set on doing it by himself again? Or maybe like a little help here and there?
Well, he does have some help. I mean, his attorneys, former attorneys, Kara Higgins and Jerry Bellorado, sorry, I got braces, I can't say things sometimes, are on his side. They're supporting him as much as they can, as in the form of, like, you know, legal counsel as guidance. I know for a fact that they desperately want to try this case for him. So who knows if he's going to continue to go pro se or if Kara and Jerry will be back.
So that was why everybody was, I think, up in arms saying, oh, Ty's going to get, his attorneys are going to take over. His attorneys are going to take over because of that statement that she made there. So if his attorneys are wanting to do this, then to me, I hope he lets them do it. I mean, if they're willing to come in and do it, because I believe that, you know, they're going to be able to better get the evidence in than he will, at least just from a procedural standpoint. And I mean, at the end of the day, what he has to understand, in my opinion, and really what you have to look at is if this could have been simply argued to the jury differently, this jury would have found him not guilty. The state can't make their case. They have no evidence. They really don't. I mean, at the end of the day, the only reason why their case survived is because when Ty got up there, he got all caught up in the knife stuff, which Vinny is going to talk about very well, in fact. But they did some trickery that they would have never gotten away with. And let me tell you, I guarantee you, John Travis Johnson would have gotten destroyed on cross-examination, and it would have been game over. I mean, it would have been absolutely just done. He would have had no credibility whatsoever if a skilled attorney would have had him in front of that jury, and they would have been able to get things in, and they would have been able to get the Seth LeVay motion to suppress in. All of that would have come in because they would have known exactly how to get it in, and Judge Jones couldn't have blocked that. But at the same point, if he would have shown up with attorneys, very likely that we wouldn't have seen the press on it, although we might have, because of the fact that Laura Janae is a famous person. So, they might have looked into it, but it certainly wouldn't have brought the attention that it did this time with him being pro se. But like I said, we've already got that. So now this time, if they're willing, man, let them do it. But at the same point, too, do I think Ty can't win? No, I think it's just a more complicated situation. It's more risky. It's more of a chance that a judge who wants to keep certain things out will be able to do so, and it's easier for them to keep things out because, again, if you don't procedurally do it correctly, it doesn't come in, and it's not appealable. And if you're not protecting your record during trial, then not even the appeals court can help you because you have to protect the record. You have to make a record of an issue that you believe is appealable. If you don't do that, the issue goes away. There's no way to appeal it then. Anyways, let's get back to listening here.
To defend him. I'm not sure how that's going to go.
All right. Well, we'll see. So what's life going to be like now? And I know it's been, there's been some marital problems or, last night you said a little bit of a roller coaster. Where are you guys on that roller coaster ride right now that this trial is over and he's got a few months? What's that look like?
Well, honestly, it's very frustrating because I can't believe that they're dragging this on even more. The state does not have a case. There's no evidence against Ty. They're going to try to redo this trial. Their evidence is going
to. Dolores, yes, he has. And his reason, the original reason for why he was not using attorneys, and it was because when this case, when the motion he filed a motion to dismiss that was argued last summer, and Judge Jones denied that motion to dismiss and did so in a way that his order was not, upset Ty, upset his attorneys, because he essentially said, I'm basically just ignoring all of the reasons you laid out in your motion, even though there were, several provable evidence that Detective Pitcher had lied before the grand jury. And as a result, there's case law that says if perjured testimony or if knowingly false testimony is put before a grand jury by a prosecutor, then the remedy for that is a dismissal. Now, the judge can dismiss with prejudice or without prejudice, okay? And if you dismiss without prejudice, it can be refiled. If you dismiss with prejudice, it can never be filed again. So they were expecting that they were going to dismiss it without prejudice, which would have allowed them to represent. Judge Jones just said, no, I'm not doing that. I'm saying that there were no due process issues, that these statements weren't known to be false at the time, and that although they might have been false, but at this time, if Detective Pitcher believed them to be true, then it wasn't knowingly false. He basically just stretched and ignored. He really just ignored. There were other things that the prosecutor lied about. There was they hid Todd O'Quinn's testimony. But essentially, what Judge Jones did is he said, I'm not, because he knew that if the case got dismissed and it went before a grand jury again, he probably couldn't even get an indictment. So he let the case go forward. It was at that time Now, remember, at that time, Ty Tucker was still gagged. And what Ty Tucker was upset about was went out to the public, and what they were doing at that time was they were speaking around the gag order in their orders and in their motions, right? And Ty Tucker's attorneys were doing a little bit of that as well. But in Ty Tucker's opinion, the judge puts forth this order, and they're not allowed to speak to the press. They're not allowed to clear this up. They're not allowed to say anything. It's just, this is what it is. It's unfounded. There was nothing that rose to a level of violating Ty Tucker's due process and as due process rights and his right to a fair trial. And as a result, boom, we're moving forward to trial. So as a result, that was when Ty Tucker said, well, I want to be able to basically express myself, express my thoughts on how this was. So what he did is he decided he was going to go pro se, which would then allow him to file his motion for pro se, which allowed him to put a lot of essentially his feedback, which he was hoping would get into the file, and that when people saw him going pro se, they would pick up his motion for going pro se, as well as his motion in limine, when he was asking to be able to present a bunch of this evidence, where he basically, if you go in, and again, these are things I'm going to cover, and show some things I've already shown, where he talks about basically all the things we've already talked about, all the things that were going on in the case. And there's some things we haven't talked about yet that were going on in the case. And he lays it all out there. But he knew that the way he wrote those motions, if his attorneys tried to do that, they would have potentially been opened up to being sanctioned by the bar. They could have had bar complaints sent in on them. So he chose to go pro se temporarily to do that. And then he wasn't certain he was going to actually go to trial pro se or not. And then apparently, and all of this, if you go to Uncivil Law is the name of the broadcaster, he gave an interview with him, and he gets into all of this. But he basically says, right around Christmas, they were determining whether or not they were going to ask for more time to prepare for the trial, or they were going to go forward to trial. And I guess his attorneys there, that were helping him, his advisor said, we have it on authority that John Travis Johnson is in the wind. Like he went back out. He's using drugs. They don't know where he's at. They haven't been able to locate him. So they said, go forward, go into the courtroom, go forward with trial, and represent yourself. But we'll be able to at least tell you how to do some of these procedural things. But if John Travis Johnson isn't there, then you can, they're going to put on whatever case they put, but they're not going to have any evidence. And then you can ask them for a directed verdict, because they're not going to have John Travis Johnson's testimony, which is the only testimony that links you there. Everything else, there's nothing else. There'd be no choice but a directed verdict right in front of the media, right in front of everybody. So that's why he heads down and says, okay, this is great. We're going to do this. Well, it turns out this is why Mansfield, this is why Alvarez were in the courtroom saying this is a once in a lifetime opportunity for us to have this opportunity to try to win this case. And that was because Ty Tucker had shown up there thinking that there was going to be no John Travis Johnson. Well, when he gets there, he finds out there is John Travis Johnson is here. He's fine. The state has him, and he's going to be produced, and he's going to testify. And that's when Ty realizes, oh shit, I gotta prepare for a trial in like 3 days. And of course, Judge Jones said, no continuances, we're going forward. And they thought they had him. I mean, they really did. They thought they had him completely unprepared. That's why it was literally looking like what it was. He wasn't prepared. He was issuing subpoenas. He was trying to work with his advisors. He literally was not expecting to be in trial at that moment, or at least not in a trial to the degree that he was in. So the state pushed forward, and that's why they pushed as far as they could. And that's why they backed off a little bit at certain times. They backed off when they were trying to send in the prior consistent statement. And the judge was saying, well, I think we're borderline here. And that's when Mansfield said, no, I don't want to ruin this. This is a unique situation. Essentially, we've pretty much created this opportunity where if Ty Tucker gets convicted, and that's pretty much what the state of that case was, if Ty Tucker got convicted, besides what was going on at the end with the malfeasance they did with trying to suggest that his wife was buying vacations for Paula, and then the bit they did with the knife. Up until then, okay, they had done a pretty good job of having. It wasn't that the record. It wasn't that it was really a clean record. It was just Ty Tucker had not made or protected the record at all. So all the bullshit they were doing was never going to be able to be addressed on appeal, because an appeals attorney wouldn't be able to do it because it wasn't protected. It wasn't addressed. It wasn't, he didn't follow the procedures that he needed to do to protect that record. So that's why they were being so careful. So they walked him in. But that's why you heard his wife saying he's got two attorneys that right now are chomping at the bit. They know now this is a national case. This is a case where they can come in and win this thing. People's eyes and attention are on it. And I think it became very clear that that's why this is a unique circumstance where the retrial will not be an advantage to the state. But it's also why Dennis Ward was out there lying, claiming it was 11-1 when it wasn't 11-1, trying to taint the jury pool, trying to do, and listen, there's going to be other things they're going to do. They're going to try to pull from the bottom of the deck. And one of the ways they can absolutely do that is trying to get his bond revoked. That would be the ultimate right there, because then now that might drive him back to have attorneys there, because I think it would almost be impossible to effectively prepare for trial from the Monroe County Detention Center. But that would also telegraph that this judge is not the fair judge that we're hoping he's going to be, and that he needs to be, and that this case needs. Anyways, we'll get back to watching this here.
It's going to be the same, which is there's no DNA, there's no evidence that he was there, their witness is weak, et cetera, et cetera. And it just, this entire time, I've just been shocked that this has been allowed to continue. So I think there's going to be a level of, on my part, frustration that here we have to go through this again. We're still fighting this fight. But I think Ty's confidence is going to be through the roof. He's going to feel like a big win happened, and he's going to be feeling like he's in a better position to fight, this a second time around. I think when he comes home, my hope is that he focuses on preparing for, the new trial and making sure his witnesses lined up, that, all the mistakes he made in this first trial that he fixes and has plans for. So I think, it's not that far out that he stays very busy and focused on this next opportunity.
Lauren Janai, thanks for joining us tonight. I know it's been a wild day. It's been a wild ride, and we appreciate your time, and we'll speak again.
Sounds good. Always good talking with you.
All right, thanks so much. All right, let's bring in our think tank. This doesn't happen. Joining us in Atlanta, Georgia, criminal defense attorney Eklund Mercy. Also with us in Phoenix, Arizona, the attorney who represented Jodi Arias, Hates Her More Than You, Kirk Nurmi. And in Los Angeles, California, president of the West Coast Trial Lawyers and former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani. Eklund Mercy, what are your thoughts? Is this a win for Ty Tucker?
Absolutely. I think it should be a complete W for him. And I think that he should, know how to fold them and let his money talk right now. I think he did a lot of heavy lifting. It only proves that had he had attorneys, that they would have garnered the not guilty. What we see is that he had some stylistic issues that it takes. That's the part of being an attorney, being a lawyer, that requires practice. That's why it's the practice of law. But I think that at this point, we're dealing with his ego. If his ego can let this case go and he just lets the professionals do it after he did a phenomenal job to the point he's declaring a mistrial on national TV, I take it as a win.
Kirk Nurmi, who has the advantage second time around here?
I still think the prosecutors have the advantage in this case. They always do. And I think, Mr. Tucker is going to come back with the confidence that he really hasn't earned, right? I mean, I think about it. I know I'd love to be interviewed by Matt Johnson too, but he's running out of the courthouse talking to Matt Johnson instead of seeing if any jurors want to talk to him. Any jurors want to state the strengths and the weaknesses, why other jurors thought he would be convicted. If he's interested in earning an acquittal in the next trial, I'm going to guess that's where the state prosecutors were. He should have been back there as well. So, you know, he does need, as it's a win because he's not behind bars, but he would be going home a free man with no other charges had he had counsel. So, you know, he needs to give real consideration to that, and his wife seemed to hint at that as well. So for his sake, I hope he does that, because I think the prosecutors are going to come back with a little more vengeance there. Their egos are probably rightly bruised after this hung jury.
All right, Nima Romani, I want to ask you about something that the prosecution did in this case, and I want your opinion on whether or not it was above board, below board, whatever. This is David Alvarez, prosecutor, closing argument, and their smoking gun argument in their closing argument was blood on the knife, that involving how the defendant, Ty Tucker, knew whose blood was on the knife. Here's what the prosecutor told the jury.
The most damaging piece of evidence in this case is the conversation that Paula Belmonte testified to, or was read into the record by Mr. Mansfield. And that is the conversation that she had with this defendant at the McDonald's the day after he was interviewed by the sheriff's department. They sat at the McDonald's and ran into each other by chance after he walked from the sheriff's department with slides on that were given to him. Runs into Paula. He went there, remembered to use the Wi-Fi. He runs into Paula. They start talking about the crime. Paula tells him what's happening, and he's feeling really, really bad for her. But he informs her, hey, the sheriff's department found the knife, or they found the knife, and she was really happy to hear that. And she said, oh my God, that's great. It has my blood on it. What does this defendant tell Paula Belmont? No, it had Matthew Reed Bonnet's blood on it. We know the Monroe County Sheriff's Office didn't provide that information because this defendant.
Objection.
Well, I'm going to sustain that.
And I want you look, and I'm so glad Vinnie calls this guy out, because of course Vinnie doesn't quite understand how egregious this is. But if you watch my last video, it's 5 hours long. Might not have watched all of it, but go back in there. If you watch the video I put out after or on the closing arguments day, the day of jury deliberations, if you watch the vindication of Tyrone Tucker, you're going to see I provide in that video the interrogation of Tyrone Tucker. And in there, it's clear how he found that information out. He was told by Penny Phelps, clearly told by Penny Phelps, that the blood of Matthew Bonnet was on that knife. Why was he? How did she tell him? Well, she told him that because she said they knew the wounds were consistent with Matthew Bonnet, and there was blood on that knife, and they were implying directly that that was the knife used to stab Matthew Bonnet. So what he was saying was, no, they were saying that's Matthew Bonnet, which all the more says Tyrone Tucker don't know what the hell happened there, because he's telling her, no, they were saying Matthew Bonnet's blood's on there. And that's what he was saying. No, he said Matt's blood's on there. So this is not some smoking gun. He was told that night at the police station. And the egregious part is they kept that out. They kept that out. And you're going to hear Vinnie talk about it. So Vinnie will get as mad as I am about it. They kept that video out. They used their experience as lawyers to not get that in when, as you hear Vinnie say, they should have been helping him out. They should have been getting it in. And they sure as hell shouldn't have been standing in front of a jury. They should be. And again, Ty Tucker will, I'm sure, take care of that at some point. Look, these guys should have state bar complaints filed against their law license, or at least he should, for standing in front of the jury. There is an obligation that every officer of the court, he's an officer of the court. It's the same reason why Seth LeVay, it's such an important thing when Seth LeVay files a motion, that anything you present to the court is supposed to be presented as honest fact. You're not ever allowed to present a lie, ever. And the fact that he did this, brought this in to court, knowing that it's a lie. It's against law for him to do that. It's against the ethics of a lawyer, and he can be censured. He can be suspended. I mean, he could, in theory, lose his law license for what he did here. And the fact that he was doing it to try to get a conviction in a capital case, that takes that to the next level. And Mansfield did the same thing. And these guys, and the question is, why are you doing that? Why do you need to do that? And if this is the most important piece of evidence in your case, and it's not even real, I think that speaks volumes. I mean, unbelievable. And yeah, well, I understand the lawyers. I'll address this too. I see you guys talking in there. Seems odd that he's suggesting he'll defend himself again if there's another trial. Might be some. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, the thing is, Pamela is 100% on point here with what she's saying. You heard, and you're going to hear. I think there'll be other references to this about him being arrogant and not being willing to accept counsel. I think what it is he has a distrust of the situation, because for him, he had counsel for like 6 years, right? For almost 5.5 years. And in his mind, it didn't get him to where he wanted. It didn't get the case dismissed. They lost the dismissal. And they were and I think the conversation to him was, Ty, we can't do certain things. We can't get certain things in. There's limitations. And the way he feels about it is there isn't a limitation for me. But I think he understands a little better now, maybe, what they meant when they're saying, well, there's a certain way things have to be done. There's a certain way things have to be presented. But the bottom line is the real truth of the matter is, I think what Ty really wants is to really get this full story out. He doesn't just want to be acquitted and have this thing go away. He wants to use his trial to really highlight the true injustice that's going on. And I know his attorneys, if they take over the case, they're going to be focused on just winning the case. And what Ty's saying is, again, now well, I'll follow up after I finish making a statement. But what he wants to do is he wants to use his defense case, to really bring in the evidence of corruption, bring in what these people did, bring in the way they acted to protect certain individuals in this case, the way they tried to get a confidential informant to lie and say that they heard him confess in the jail when they knew that wasn't true, the way they essentially pushed John Travis Johnson to include Ty Tucker when they knew John Travis Johnson was the second guy. They knew there wasn't a third guy, and they were doing all of this to try to downplay the involvement of Anthea Clay, who Anthea Clay was the ringleader to set this up, and she never gets charged or investigated. And the true answers to all of that comes around. Why was Penny Phelps on the scene? Why was this of such concern that Colleen Dunn's brought in, that you have prosecutors on the scene right away at the early points of this case? And that it all comes down to the high intensity drug trafficking area task force, which is a big deal for the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. And Anthea Clay was a big piece of that. And essentially, she, is the key thing here, because she was a huge asset to them in several big investigations that were going on. She was an informant. She was a confidential informant, a CI. And as a result, they wanted to protect her. They wanted to protect her to make sure that she was going to be available to be able to help them in the cases they need it, and not be hurt or impacted in a negative way by what happened here, as being somebody who sets up a robbery that goes bad. So when they jump in, their idea is, in my opinion, is keep her out of it, right? And Phelps, who was the head of the task force, that's what you have to understand. Phelps was the head of the task force, the task force. Okay, and you saw it. I showed it off in the video. That pitcher works for HIDTA. That's what he's doing right now. He transferred fully into HIDTA out of the major crimes. He's a HIDTA agent now. Okay, I don't know if he's still down there, but that's what he had been transferred to at least a couple years back. But essentially, Phelps was the head of that. So the reason why she comes in is because the reason why she's there is because Anathea Clay is a major asset for her, and she needed to rectify this. And she jumps in. Now, like I said, I stand by my thought here is that, look, she gets in, she thinks she's going to close this case, and the way she sees it is she gets the crackheads together and she turns one on the other and shuts them down, gets them convicted, ships them off like she's done in many, many other cases. And shuts down any talk about who sent them over. As long as she gets the convictions, then her assets protected. The problem is she messes it up. She goes in, she goes after Ty Tucker incorrectly, believing it was Ty Tucker. And maybe, listen, there was an inference, and I was digging deep into the case file based on a suggestion by one of my commenters that possibly John Travis Johnson was a confidential informant. It's funny because there were motions about that. And there's a hearing where they have that. And they really never say he isn't. They just say that that they don't have any information about that, and Judge Jones basically blocks it out. But it appears that, maybe he was newly developed, because you got to remember, John Travis Johnson was brought in. I always found it odd because, remember, Phelps comes in contact with Johnson. She's talking with him out front. For whatever reason, she trusts him that day. And she talks to him. They move on. They have several further conversations. They exchange phone numbers. That might have been the first time they ever met. But I found it weird because I'm thinking to myself, I know a couple of days before he's arrested for marijuana charges. He's been brought in. He's been told he's got to hang out down in Key West. And suddenly, they're protecting him. Suddenly, when this case goes, they're going around John Travis Johnson. They're ignoring him and laying it at the feet of Tyrone Tucker. Now, I'm not saying – I think they legitimately thought Tyrone Tucker was that other guy until they figured out that he wasn't. And like I said, that's where I believe Phelps comes in, starts pushing, leans on Rory Wilson, leans on April. Both of them make a false statement against Ty. Now she's stuck with Ty being involved in the case. So then once she gets the Cosme tapes and once she gets the CVS tapes, because remember, the CVS tapes, okay, the CVS tapes, you hear Todd O'Quinn in the street when we're listening to the pitcher case and he's walking pitcher through. He says, there's that camera right there. And pitcher says, we're getting those. We're waiting on those. Those will be in the next couple of days. And he says, that's great because when you get that camera right there, you're going to see that guy that walks out. And I believe when they got those pictures, those cameras, which unfortunately got destroyed, okay, and have never been found. But when they got them, I believe they saw it wasn't Ty Tucker. But it was too late. Ty Tucker had already been rounded up. He'd been brought in. He'd been accused. Phelps was in there pressuring Rory Wilson. And there's no way you get around that style of interview that she conducted, which was the read technique all day long, which unfortunately is, responsible for a large amount of false confessions from innocent people. She goes in, she implores it, and she's got Roy Wilson now saying Ty Tucker was involved, and she's stuck with that. So she now has to, involve Ty, and that's how we get to the point where they go to John Travis Johnson. And boom, John Travis Johnson is, essentially naming Ty as, Phelps is pushing him to name Ty, and Phelps gives him the story and that whole thing there. So all of that, Ty wants to put that out there. He wants to expose Phelps because there are other people that Phelps has done this to. There are other people that Colleen Dunn has done this to. And right now, allegedly, Dennis Ward has rehired Colleen Dunn. Colleen Dunn is the prosecutor who, we haven't got into the full story of this yet, but there's a confidential informant that basically right after the arrest of Ty Tucker, when they realized their case was going south, that they realized it wasn't very strong, they realized they moved this guy named Naheem Jackson, into the cell block with Tyrone Tucker. And they do so with the express purpose of trying to get him around Tyrone Tucker so that he can claim that he heard a confession from Tyrone Tucker. Now, this guy's done this 40 previous times. He's been paid. He's under paid contract with the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. Colleen Dunn is a prosecutor who has built a career on getting convictions, that involve jailhouse snitches. So they do this, right? The problem is it ends up blowing up in their face, and they hold out to Judge Jones that this guy is not paid informant, that he's just a guy trying to do the right thing, and it turns out that's not the case. And they get Tyrone Tucker's attorneys were able to get the jailhouse records. They were able to see his movements, how they moved him in and out of the cell block. And of course, most importantly, this Naeem Jackson guy, he didn't know what the heck. I mean, his story was so ridiculous. It was crazy. But this is the due process issue that Tyrone Tucker was so upset about. She, as in Colleen Dunn, held out to the court that she had a confidential informant who was a credible, who was telling a credible story that could have only come from Ty Tucker. Now, he wasn't brought in to testify, okay, but at a Arthur hearing, they allow hearsay. They don't allow double. I don't believe they allow double hearsay, but they allow hearsay. They allow essentially where you can have a police investigator testify as to what they were told, but from others, what witness statements are going to say. And Colleen Dunn holds out to the court, swears to the court that I'm aware of this. There's this testimony. She has Pitcher who says he's aware of this, and they present that to the court. The judge uses that to deny Ty Tucker bond for another year. It is only after that they go and figure out that Colleen Dunn was lying to the court because that this guy was not some good Samaritan. She even expressly said there was no money. He was not ever paid. He was not a paid informant. He was just a good Samaritan trying to do the right thing. Turns out that there's a conversation with a police officer 2 weeks, basically like 2 weeks before he comes forward and says he heard Tyrone confess, where he says, "This is what I want. I want to get out. I want a free ride." And he also has a signed contract with the Monroe County Sheriff's Office where he has acted as an informant 40 separate times, meaning he's not some clean, good Samaritan. He's somebody with a history of working with the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, snitching out people. Well, when this comes before the judge, that's what prompts Tyrone Tucker to be released on bond, because it was so egregious that the judge was just like, holy cow. Like, I mean, she knowingly lied to the court. Now, also, one of the remedies, again, when you present lies to the grand jury like that, or you present lies in court, that was part of the motion to dismiss, of saying they lied to the grand jury. They lied in the Arthur hearing. This prosecutor violates Tyrone Tucker's due process rights all over the place here, that the only remedy here is that this case is no good, that when you take away all the things that were lied about, you take away all the evidence, you don't have the informant anymore. John Travis Johnson, up until 2022, I believe, wasn't testifying. So they were saying, hey, look, you take it all out, and then you have John Travis Johnson, who essentially was fed a story by Phelps. This case is no good. Dismiss it with prejudice. They violated his due process rights to try to get the case to where it's at. Judge Jones ignored it. But this is why Ty Tucker says, I want this out, because he knows that if he gets acquitted, and walks out of that courtroom, while he'll be free, he'll be free, but this case won't be known to people. There'll be nothing done. They'll get away with it again. And, it's frustrating. Anyways, let's get back to watching this here. Sorry, I went off on a tangent there, but that's what this is about here. Like I said, we're watching, but we're talking.
Objection, because that's not facts and evidence. They can certainly make an inference, but to suggest absolutely that's the case.
Restate. We know for a fact that it was proven on this defendant's examination of Angela Oslowski that the DNA results on the knife did not come back until months after that meeting in McDonald's. So I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
I will overrule that objection. That was within my previous ruling. The last argument stayed within, so I'll overrule that objection.
Again, devil in the details, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. How would this defendant know to tell Ms. Belmonte whose blood was on that knife? I would submit to you, using your common sense, as the judge is going to instruct you in a minute, it was because he was there.
All right. So they're saying, listen, only the killer would know that the blow's on the knife. Take a look at the interrogation that took place before he made that statement with one of the victims at the McDonald's. This is the interrogation of the defendant, Captain Penny Phillips.
In the walk from Laurel Avenue on 2nd Street to where you live, we found in lot 72.
I hope so too.
A knife. Okay, on that knife is blood, and on the handle of that blood, latent DNA. That's going to the lab. And we have wounds on our victim that are consistent with the knife that was found in lot 72.
So Nima, that interrogation, they're telling him there's blood on the knife, and they're telling him that the wounds on the victim, the murder victim, are consistent with this knife. So is it okay for the prosecutor to make that argument that the only way he would know when they know what's on the interrogation video that was not permitted to be shown to the jury?
No, Vinnie, it's not, because we're prosecutors. We have to be held to a higher standard. Even if evidence is not admitted for some reason, you cannot present false or incorrect evidence. You cannot do that. So that's something that I disagree with the prosecution here. And look, the prosecution knew it was a weak case from the jump. That's why they offered him what they did, essentially a no-time deal. And Tucker may actually be innocent. I mean, we don't know. But that's why he rejected the deal, because he at least believes he is. And, as far as me commenting on other prosecutors, I certainly would not do that. It's not appropriate. Something's not coming into evidence. You're dealing with a pro se defendant. You have to treat them differently. You got to treat them fairly, and you can't do something like that, Vinnie.
Yeah, and you know me, I'm the former prosecutor, but I'm not comfortable with that. Like arguing something that is not true to the jury. And there's a piece of evidence that this defendant didn't know how to get in front of the jury because he's a pro se, he's not a lawyer like you guys. I was uncomfortable with it. We'll see what happens. It was a mistrial, so it's just, I guess, water under the bridge at this point. But all right, stay where you are. Think Tank with us the whole hour. Up next.
So there you have it. Vinnie takes him down. I love the way he ended that, where he said, "I'm uncomfortable with it," and that was what Ty was hoping for, right? Because that's just a little bit. Can you imagine what Vinnie Politan, if he would ever take the time to watch the video I put out, if he'd take the time to really dig in to what's on Free Franklin Tucker, if you'd watch some of the interrogation videos and things, and really look into this case, right? If they would really take the time to watch that 5-hour video I put out to really fully understand what it is that went on in this case, man, they would have one hell of a damn story. I mean, and Vinny would be absolutely freaked out. And it's all there. It's all in the case file. It's all right in front of you. It's hard to believe it's actually what it is, but that's what it is. And man, I would love to see that happen. I would love to see Vinnie Politan and company take an interest in this case from that perspective and really get this thing to the next level for Ty Tucker, because that's what he deserves. I mean, listen, this man's been through an unbelievable experience, one that many of us just, I don't think, can really even imagine. I mean, and it's a shame. It's a real shame. But like I said, there's going to be more coming out from this channel. We're going to keep talking about it. We're going to keep covering it. I'm going to keep covering it. We're gonna keep the pressure on, and you can bet we're going to be going 24/7 when his trial happens. And it's going to be watching, clipping. Oh yeah, I like Vinnie Politan. I've watched Core TV for years. Vinnie Politan, I remember. I mean, I thoroughly enjoy Vinnie Politan. I love watching him. I love his takes. I don't always agree with him, but I love watching him. I think he's fun to watch. I enjoy Court TV. I enjoy Law and Crime too. But like I said, this case is one that I think that for me, Vinnie Politan, I think he would have great pause. And being that he's a former prosecutor who normally is very pro prosecution when you hear him talk, if he were to speak out on this case, that would be speaking volumes. So I hope he takes the time maybe to get involved and look deeper into this case, because that would be huge for Ty Tucker. That would just be a tremendous win for Ty. But we have a little bit of time, like I said. For those of you who weren't in here the other night, I like to go 2 hours on this show. It's Ideas, an interactive show. There'll be some nights I'm hopeful that we'll be bringing on guests and things of that nature. Like I said, we're only on episode 2, so right now we're just trying to get it up consistently each evening. But the idea here is to talk about stuff, talk about cases, talk about other cases than the one I'm following, which is Hannah Gutierrez. We will talk about that one, that case today. I've got to actually get caught up on the afternoon session, but so far, I don't know how chat feels right now. If you've been watching the case, I know Dolores was in there with me earlier today. I'm feeling like this isn't going well for her. I think they're making a strong case that that was a very disorganized set, that we have a lot of that it was not well taken care of, and they're making a strong case for the fact that she was negligent and that she knew that there were live rounds on that set, didn't take the proper protocols to ensure the live rounds were being separated from the dummy rounds, and as a result, that live round that made it into Alec Baldwin's gun, boom, directly her fault. And I think they've done a heck of a job proving that. In this case, let me know what you think in the chat there. But we're gonna end this evening. We have, like I said, we have about 30 minutes left. So I have a video that I want to play. And this is a quite crazy video. This is a video of a police officer who breaks a woman's jaw. It's about 20 minutes long. It's courtesy of KSL TV. And if you have a clip or something that you think is interesting that you want me to review, that we can watch together on the show, let me know. Send it out to me, because that's what I'm looking for stuff like this, for shows like this. That's what I want to discuss and talk about. Let's get back into the Justice Cam here. And essentially, this is a situation where there was a domestic disturbance. Officers called out to the scene. She's non-compliant, but again, we talk about escalation, and this is in the theme of what we talked about in the first episode. If you missed the first episode, go back and watch it. The Kenneth the Hart case. And let's watch. And then we'll stop and talk here. And any questions, put it in the chat.
Bound full 2 off 10. We're going to be on 200 east, about 600 north. Hi.
Oh, hi.
How you doing?
Oh, good. How are you doing?
Good. We had a call about a disturbance here.
There's no disturbance here. I'm not here. We're just talking.
Okay. Well, it looks like
we haven't yelled or nothing.
looks like you're trying to talk to someone that doesn't want to talk.
No, he had his window down. We've been talking. We had some house stuff to talk about and stuff, and we're just talking. He just keep him warm, I reckon. I don't know. I didn't ask him to get out.
Well, his window was rolled up. That's weird.
Well, you weren't here the whole time his window wasn't rolled up. He rolled it up when he turned on his heater. But
she's leaving and I'm going.
Yeah. We're not. There's no disturbance. Somebody lied to you. I would get them for false reporting because we hadn't had any disturbance.
Okay.
Not that I know of.
So are you doing okay?
Oh, good. I'm good. Good. I'm just going in and she's leaving. So.
Yeah, we were just talking about some stuff.
Was there somebody else here? Because I'm confused now.
I am too. We didn't hear anything. Nobody's yelling.
Maybe she was yelling through my window or something.
No, I was not yelling.
Talking loud, excuse me.
No, I was talking just like that. I wasn't talking loud.
What's your name?
Monty.
No, we haven't talked. I talk like this.
Are you guys ex?
Yeah.
Ex-wife? Okay.
So we still have some.
Who's the landlord?
Jeremy.
Any idea why he'd be calling?
Maybe she was yelling through the window.
No, but maybe I don't know. Monty, I was not yelling. And
I had the window closed. Maybe.
No, I was talking. This is as loud as I talk, so you can call that loud. Maybe tell him.
How far out are you?
We were just talking, and he hadn't even. We don't have any issue. We were just talking about.
Can I just talk to you inside later in just a sec?
Sure.
Excellent. Thanks.
Sure.
Okay. No, I was just leaving. We were just talking. That's all we were doing. We're not arguing. You're not mad.
Okay.
Nothing.
Can you take your hands out of your pockets for me?
Well, you're cold.
Can you just keep them out of your pockets, please?
No, I don't have. You don't feel? I don't have anything in my pockets. Well, don't be silly.
Why don't you settle down a little bit, okay? It's something I do for my safety.
If somebody comes up and harassing you, you would get a little like, "Why are you harassing me? I didn't do nothing wrong." So
who's harassing you?
It feels like harassment.
I'm just asking you what's going on. I need you to stay here.
I'm not doing anything wrong.
I'm investigating a potential crime, okay?
There's no.
I heard about that case.
For crying out
I heard
loud.
about that case.
Now you're exaggerating.
I need you to settle down.
There's no.
Based on the information I got,
can talk,
based on the information I was given.
You're not in power over
anybody. I'm about to put you in handcuffs if you don't stop.
No, you're not putting me in handcuffs.
Yes, I am.
No, you're not.
So let me tell you what the call was.
Wrong. I've done nothing
Let me tell you what the report was.
I don't care what the report was. He just.
Yeah, I heard about that case. That was very sad and crazy. And just tragic. And again, goes into the whole issue of texting and driving. Even the police are doing it. It's a terrible thing. But I mean, again, right here on the talk of escalation, this guy's talking to her. She's not. There's been no crime committed. He's investigating what? I mean, I don't know what the call was, but I'm going to put you in handcuffs. I understand she's not being as cooperative as maybe we would like her to be, but I'm going to put you in handcuffs. Now, I don't know if she, in my opinion, I get a vibe that possibly maybe she's intoxicated or something. I don't know. Maybe that's what the cop's going to go with it, but I don't think that ever comes up in the police reports and articles that I read on this. So that might not have been the case at all, but I just she just seems a little, she might just be nervous, as many people would be when they're being confronted with a cop, but he just goes 0 to 60. And it's like, why, that was my thought, Pamela. I thought she might be drunk, but she doesn't need to answer any questions. I mean, well, Dolores, the idea here is that he's going to say is that there was a crime committed, but you're right. She doesn't have to answer any questions. That's 100% correct. and he's wanting to put her in handcuffs. Watch how this goes completely off the rails. Off the rails.
Just told you we weren't doing anything, and we are the two people involved.
Nah, normal speed's fine.
So
we got a call that you were being disorderly out in front of the house.
That's a lie.
That you were shouting at him.
No shouting.
And that you were not letting him get out of the car.
Never did. I was just standing there talking. We were just talking. He never said, move, I'm going to get out of the car. He had the heater on. He turned it off. He started the car back, and we were just talking.
Okay.
And I was leaving. We were about, I gave him a piece of mail that came to the house that he needed. And then we started talking about, we got to sell the house. And we were talking about pricing and just different things.
Okay.
We weren't arguing at all. There was no
Well, can you understand how it would look to me when I come walking up here and his window's rolled up and you're being kind of loud?
You know what? I wasn't being kind of loud. That's a lie. You can say it all you want. Don't make it true. Your opinion doesn't make facts true. So
What's your name?
Greta.
What's your last
name? The same as his.
What's your date of birth? Okay.
There is nothing. Go get whoever said that.
Well, that's what I'm going to.
Well, one of the mistakes she's making, okay, is she's talking, right? What she should have done was asserted her right to remain silent. See, the biggest mistake people make when a police officer comes up and starts asking you questions, and again, this is something that was just pounded into me by my dad that said, listen, regardless, whether you're innocent, whether you're not innocent, it doesn't matter. Don't speak to a police officer. Assume that when that police officer comes up, he's not there to be your friend. He's not there to figure anything out. He's there to figure out how to make an arrest. And if he's talking to you, he's probably wanting to, he's going to he could try to arrest you. So even if you're not doing anything. So the best thing to do is assert your right to remain silent. Yes, that could lead to them making an arrest in certain situations. But at the same point, talking is a problem. Now, the fact that she continues speaking to him is where the problem exists here, because she's continuing to talk. So although she doesn't have to talk, she's continuing to engage him. And again, obviously, now maybe he would choose to arrest her, but the thing that becomes clear is you're going to see she's not willing to go with him and say, all right, fine, arrest me, take me in. I think there's a hint of her being drunk here. That's what I just kind of get the sense, which would be drunk and disorderly conduct potentially, but he's investigating. But the issue is if she shuts up, says, I'm leaving, I'm not talking to you, and, and he says, well, I need you to stay. No problem. I'm going to stand over here and I'm not going to say a word. And then he can go in and talk to Monty. And if Monty says, no, we're fine, everything's good. All right, then that's it. And he goes and talks to the witness and he says, well, they were talking loudly. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be violating any laws. It could be a noise ordinance law if some counties or municipalities have them. But that's a citation, right? Whatever he needs to do, and then he's out of there, and then she leaves and he leaves and doesn't go to where it's at. But unfortunately, she just wants to talk, and she ends up talking her way into a problem. And he again accelerates this thing. All right, so let's keep watching here because, like I said, you won't believe where this goes.
You know what? Me and Monty.
Can you just stand still, please?
Don't tell me how to move. You're not God.
I just asked you to please stand still.
I asked you to quit bossing me around. I'm not doing nothing wrong.
I asked you. I'm not bossing.
You know what you're doing.
And it's funny that I see this, and this is why it's a trigger for me, is because my wife and I, she wasn't my wife at the time, but we were involved in a car accident. This was probably about 6 months or so after we had met. And I was picking her up from work because her car was having car work done or whatnot. But she's a nurse, so she worked at a hospital a bit down the road. And we just had a snowstorm. And we get in a car accident. We hit black ice. I over-adjusted. I ended up spinning out on on the highway 81. It won't mean anything to you, but Interstate 81, and hit a guardrail, bounced out, and by the grace of God, I look up and I see a van coming at me, and it stops. I don't know how it stopped, but he had his hands out there stopping it. I guess a couple of angels came down and just said, "No, you're not hitting that car tonight." I jump out, I look around, and I mean, my wife was covered in blood, right? So I'm freaking out, right? I jump out of the car, I start screaming, "Please call 911." You know, luckily she survived. You know, it was nothing major. She had a little banged up, but it looked major. Officer comes on the scene. Now, obviously, I should have remained silent, right? But officer comes on and says, "What happened?" And immediately I start trying to tell him. You know, I'm telling him, you know, I was driving, I overcorrected, and he's just out of nowhere starts screaming at me. "Take your hands down, stop, I'm going to take you down, I will take you to the ground." And I'm like, "Officer, what's your problem? I'm sorry, I'm excited. I just saw my my girlfriend over here. She's bleeding. I'm sorry, I'm excited. I'm jacked up here. I'm like, what the hell do you think I'm doing? You think I'm trying to attack you on the side of the road when I'm trying to tell you the story?" Now, at that point, I asserted my right to remain silent. I don't want to talk to you anymore. And he said, "That's fine. I'll come to the emergency room. I think that might be better." I said, you know, and I walked away and rode the ambulance into the hospital. But I just remember that, and I'm like, what a jerk. And I remember he ended up citing me for the accident and everything. So my dad hooked me up with an attorney that was down there to go in and talk to, because he knew an attorney down there. And I found out that that young man was the head of the state police's son. And that apparently he was a hot-tempered young man, and he had apparently recently been involved in beating up somebody on the side of the road. But I just thought to myself, this officer right here doing the same. He's like, settle down. It's like, you got somebody here who's excited. What do you mean settle down? What's wrong with how you're doing? And it's like, it's those little things that it's like the officer's looking for a way to fire you up. And like I said, in my situation, I just was like, all right, you know what? I'm not going to talk to you anymore. And dude, are you serious right now? Like, I mean, I just came in, and he kind of came through, and he told me when we got to the hospital, I said, well, I'm not willing to give you any more of a statement. And he said, no problem. I'm going to cite you then. So that's fine. And he said, well, I'll just let you know, I apologize for my behavior. I just had a guy the other night attack me on the side of the road, and I thought that's what you were doing. I said, officer, the only thing I'll say to you is, why would I attack you after I got in a car accident? Like, you were asking me what happened. And that's the ridiculous of this guy right here. Anyways, thought I'd share that. In order to stand, it's still technically well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, and you're right. In certain things apply, that if he's detaining her, then he would have to read her Miranda, which that might be what he's going to grab. I don't know. Let's see what happens here.
Sir, you know what you're doing. You know what you're doing. Stop.
Will you
Your
please?
Ego is out of control.
I said,
stop.
Please. Will you please just settle down?
Doing anything wrong?
We were having a perfectly fine conversation.
Yeah, me and Monty, are we the? Did he tell you there was no problem? Did I tell you no problem?
Well, people.
And we didn't see anybody.
So I need to speak to people separately when it's a domestic violence possible issue.
Okay, I'm going.
Stop. You're under arrest. Okay, you're under arrest.
No, I'm not.
Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back. You are under arrest.
I'm not doing nothing.
Put your hands behind your back. Stop resisting.
Ow, you hurt.
Stop resisting.
And we talk about escalation.
Stop resisting.
I'm not doing nothing.
Stop resisting.
Just stop right now.
Stop resisting.
Okay,
Put your hands behind your back.
I am. Stop
Put your
right
hands
now.
behind your back.
Stop right now.
Yes,
Stop.
expedite
You're
now.
out. No, you're lying.
Put your hands behind your back.
No,
Put your hands behind your back.
I didn't do nothing, sir.
Put your other hand behind your back.
Stop. Please don't make this something it's not.
Put your hand behind your back.
I had shoulder surgery. Will you stop?
Put your other hand behind your back, then.
I didn't do nothing.
Put your other hand behind your back.
Listen, stop. Just stop right now. Stop.
Behind you.
You are harassing me.
Now note that he hasn't seen that other officer arriving. So what he does next is so unnecessary.
I'm not doing nothing wrong.
Put your hand behind your back.
You hit my head. Please
Put
stop.
your hand behind your back.
I'm not doing nothing wrong.
Put your hand behind your back. Put your hand behind your back.
Hey,
put your hand
you know
behind
what?
your back.
Didn't do
Put your hand behind your back.
Ow! Ow! That hurt!
Put your hand behind your back.
Punches her again.
He's hit me!
On your back.
He's hit me!
What in the hell is this idiot doing?
I didn't do nothing! I didn't do nothing! I did nothing! He hit me in the face!
Okay.
He hit me in the face.
Stop.
He hit me in the face, please.
Okay, stop.
All I did was walk off. That's all I did.
Yeah.
That's all I did. I didn't do nothing.
Stop. We'll figure it
I
out.
did not do nothing.
Okay, we'll
He hit me in the face like 3 times.
We'll figure it
You've
out.
got a lawsuit. You've got a lawsuit. You thought you cannot do that to somebody. I didn't do nothing. I did nothing. Get the medical here. Get medical here. Right now. Right now. He busted my jaw. He busted my jaw. I didn't even move my hand. I didn't do anything. On my jaw. This is not my jaw. All I did was just say I'm leaving. He has nothing. I didn't do nothing. You know what? This ain't right. This ain't right. It ain't about being calm. It's about breaking the law. It's about breaking the law. It's about you ain't going to do nothing to Trump. You know you are not. And look what he just did to me.
Let's give us a sec to work through everything, okay?
He got a lawsuit, buddy. I didn't do nothing. I did not do nothing.
You gotta take this one step at a time, all right? Or how are those handcuffs feel?
Did not do anything.
Okay. How do those handcuffs feel?
Did not do anything. I didn't do anything. I was talking to him and answering this question. He came up here and me and Monty were talking. We did nothing. And we even told him we did
Here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna give you I want to give you a second.
You saw it. He did it. He knocked me on the ground. He hit my face up against the sidewalk.
Yeah, it's Monty's. He's inside. I sent him inside.
It's not his house. I didn't do anything. Hey, officer, what's your name? And what's his name? This is okay. You see that this is okay what you did? Look here. Look here, sir. Look here, sir.
Just watch the front door.
I hope you got them. Did you have your body cam on? That was really good. No, I'm not. I'm not. It's pushing. Can you push it that way? See, and I just got a shot in my hand and that finger.
I'm not sure.
I got two things.
I thought he went in here.
Right now. Yeah.
Did you go running?
Hello.
Officers, I'm so sorry.
Are you the
About
owner then?
Yes.
Okay. Where is Monty?
Monty was in his
Yeah, he was when I got here.
Jeep. Oh, okay.
Where did he? Is he inside?
live? He lives in the back.
Of which one?
The entrance. Let me grab my shoes real quick. Give me 2 seconds.
Okay. Yeah, dude, Gil sped right past me.
Yeah.
She keeps rolling over trying to fight me.
So he lives in the basement.
Let me just talk to you first too before we go.
Yeah,
talk to him again. I just want to know where we're going.
His door's right there. But
Okay, so what did you see happening?
so I pulled in, came home. I'll give you just a brief background and then tell you what I saw. I got home. The brief background is,
He's friendly for all I know. Like he was fine with me.
Okay. And we've had no issue. Monty's been great. He's a good neighbor. He's a good tenant. He's good. From all accounts, she provokes him.
Uh-huh.
You know, if ever, you know, there's been a couple times where there's been kind of a dispute outdoors, and she really rides him pretty hard. But so she comes. He's made it clear. He's told me she's not welcome and that I'm welcome to ask her to leave. He's told her that, but she comes around, and she used to come down.
I brought your notepad, Samwell.
She used to come and wait.
Mine's in the car.
Mine's at my desk.
That's all right. No, I got a. Okay, I got some.
She used to come and wait for him in his stairwell.
Okay.
When he got home from work, and he had no way to get her to leave. And so he started locking this outdoor door, and it goes down the stairs to another door. So since she couldn't talk to him through the door here, she's been coming to his window wells on the side, and yelling at him through his window wells. And so that's where several times over the last few months, I mean, it's almost been on a weekly basis, I'll get a complaint from a neighbor because they can hear her yelling at him.
Yeah, that's actually the landlord. Or the
3 weeks ago,
property manager.
I came out one time. She was yelling at him down her window well, or down his window well, and I said, "Hey, what's going on here?" You know, and I confronted her and asked her.
When was this?
This was about 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
About 3 weeks ago. And she was very defensive and angry with me at first, and it took about 5-10 minutes of her really challenging me. You know, what am I doing? Who's complaining? What's, you know, and obviously I didn't tell her the neighbor, but just said, look, you know, I really don't have a problem that you're here as long as you're welcome and you're civil. But when my neighbors are complaining, we have a problem. And if I have to involve the police or, you know, basically kind of warned her, right? And it got better. She still came around a few times after that, but she was a little quieter. And then the last couple of weeks, I've had a few more complaints.
Have we been here in the last couple of weeks?
No, and I don't know. You know, that's where I've tried to avoid this type of escalation because I worry that she'll come back.
Will you get a statement from him, Ryan? Just while I'm talking to him.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, Ryan? Yeah, that's all good.
Yeah.
You hear me?
Yeah. So
it goes too far sometimes.
Just so you know the circumstances, I had a neighbor text me again, and I was like, I felt like I've got.
We just want to get a statement from you guys separately before, because things kind of escalated. So, do you have any cameras here or anything?
I don't. I wish I did. I've got a ring that I need to install.
Were you watching what happened?
No, I saw you come here, and I almost wanted to point you around the corner. I should have.
Well, yeah, it was really weird because looking at the map and it says 207, 238, and then I'm like, okay, it's over here.
It's a 650 North address.
I heard her.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, this must be where we're going.
Yeah.
No, things got a little out of hand. So.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay,
about that.
so within the last 3 weeks, started getting worse. Texting neighbors.
So then today, I just came home from. I had my kids in the van, and we just came home from my mom's house. And as I pulled around the corner here to come into my garage, she was standing there at Monty's door. Talking
at his car
to
door?
him at his car door. She was standing at his car door.
Now
so
these officers are very interested because they need to cover up and justify what just happened.
That she's got him pinned in his car and he's not getting out because he's trying to avoid confrontation. And
was his window up or down?
Up. Window was up.
And when was this? Like approximate time?
Oh, this was like within the last probably 30 minutes. Like I called pretty close because as soon as I saw that, I got out of the car. I could hear her. Through my garage door. And before we got out of the car, I shut the garage door because the garage door that I came in is the one right there where she was standing. So I shut the garage door, and as I'm getting my kids out, I can hear her through the door. I don't know if she was yelling. I could hear her pretty easily. And so we came inside, and I pulled out my phone, and I had a text from a neighbor saying she's back, and she's got him pinned in his car. And so I was like, and I said, so this has been over months, and I have some text history.
Can I see that text, and can I get that neighbor's info?
Yeah. So there's the text. She's back today. She's literally yelling at him while he's in his car, like trapping him. sent a picture. So she lives upstairs.
Okay, so
in the
she's
studio
probably just
apartment.
watching what
Yeah.
just happened.
So she probably did see.
So how do we get to her? Up the stairs
can-
here?
Oh, you
or-
bet he
Yeah,
wants to get to
through.
her.
You can go in through here.
After she saw
because
that
she has access to
disaster
the back
happen,
door,
where he's punching her in the
but
face.
because of this situation, she's been nervous, and so we've been letting her go through the side here.
Okay.
And then she has stairs up to her studio apartment up there.
Okay.
And so I said, thanks, Sydney. I'll call to report it. They're sending an officer.
Okay.
And so you can see she's out there. This was Friday. Wait, that's the same one. Wait.
That's today.
This is actually last Friday. This one.
Oh, okay.
I know.
And then
I know.
that's today. So a week
I mean,
later. So last Friday.
So they call,
Monday, the 23rd.
the officer in, who's armed, comes in, attacks her, takes her to the ground, punches her in the face repeatedly. And now he's very interested in making sure that she looks like she's a bad person, because he needs to justify why he just did what he did.
Joint thread with my wife. Let me see if I've got the separate thread with Sydney.
Is she the one that's been calling though?
Yeah. Okay. And which makes sense, because she's a problem. She hears it all, and she can hear when she's yelling. And
Sydney.
She's got the closest. Mm-hmm.
What's her phone number?
Tuesday. That was in response to the Monday. Her number is.
Okay, so you see the text, you hear her see her and hear her at the window, and go from there.
Yep.
What happened after that? Did you call us, or did you listen, or hear anything specific?
I didn't. It's hard because I try not to pry too much, and I don't. You know what I mean? It's like so I just called as soon as I saw the text. So this was all. I mean, I was on the phone within. I was on the phone within 10 minutes of arriving home.
Okay. What time did the text come through?
And to be fair to Greta, when I was on the phone, they're like, is she yelling? And she wasn't really yelling at him. She seemed calm at that time. She's yelled at him before, and I've witnessed it. But today, she wasn't. But obviously, clearly, it sounds like she.
Yeah, I'm not sure what
got real upset after you guys showed up. But so let's see. Let's see.
It's amazing how it changes when they overreact. They essentially break the law, and now it's like, well, we need to get as much dirt on this lady as we can say to justify what I just did, and try to justify charging her. Because he knows he's created a major issue for himself.
Okay. Alrighty. And what's your name?
Jeremy.
Jeremy.
Yes, sir.
Last name?
It's been a crappy year for law enforcement, but
yes,
we sure appreciate you.
Sure appreciate you punching a lady
that's what
out,
I just
right?
did too. Can you
MMA style
There's
punching
an
her
upstairs. There's an upstairs neighbor
up here
that heard. Will you get a statement from her?
Yeah.
Actually, can we have you guys do witness statements? Just basically, you sign your name saying, "Yeah, this is what happened." Okay. Will you get statement 3, one for him, and then her upstairs?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks.
You have extra pens?
Yeah.
And by the way, he broke her jaw, just so you all know. And we're going to dig a little deeper into this, but he actually broke her jaw. Her jaw was broken from the altercation you just saw. So, yeah, he broke her jaw. That was from back in 2020. Now we're going to look. We're going to end this thing with. Before we end it, we're going to look at an article, supporting article here, that will give us a little bit more insight into this case. Answer some of the questions I saw some of you asking about this. Like I said, it was a pretty crazy situation. So here it is. Well, he wasn't fired. He wasn't fired. Here, you're going to hear exactly what happened. So it says here, bountiful officer in 1 million lawsuit was reprimanded for punching woman 64 years old in the face. There's the video we watched. An internal investigation from the Bountiful Police Department found its own Corporal John Joubert used excessive force while arresting 64-year-old Greta Jensen in December 2020. Body camera footage shows Joubert appearing to punch Jensen in the face while she is on the ground as she yells for help. Jensen of Salt Lake has filed a $1 million federal lawsuit against Joubert, alleging that he violated her constitutional rights by using excessive force when he arrested her. She also argues that she had committed no crime. In the lawsuit filed in October 2023, Jensen claims the arrest caused severe physical pain, including a broken jaw, facial trauma, bilateral shoulder injury, elbow injury, head injury, neck injury, and other physical pain and suffering. Joubert, who has worked for Bountiful Police for 15 years and has no past disciplinary history, disagreed with the results of the department's investigation, saying his actions were reasonable and necessary. So what do you all think? Do you think his actions were reasonable and necessary? I don't think they were. I think he jumped right to arrest really fast, and I think it was ridiculous. Hello, how you doing, HS squared or H squared? How you doing? Aloha. Welcome. Let's see here. So the arrest. The police received a call from a landlord after Jensen, the ex-wife of a tenant, appeared to be yelling at the tenant and standing outside his car so he couldn't leave. Joubert arrived at a house in Bountiful neighborhood near 200 East and 650 North about 4 p.m. He later testified in a deposition. As I approached them, I remember I could hear Greta pretty loud and upset. He said she had been standing at the driver's door of her ex-husband's car, who had his window rolled up, and that the situation was corroborating exactly what I was told by dispatch. Body camera footage shows the officer sending the ex-husband into his house to separate the two, and he began questioning Jensen. Joubert said in a deposition he asked basic questions and was met with just an unusual amount of resistance that was puzzling to me. I tried to explain as best I could why I was doing what I was doing and trying to de-escalate things. Everything I tried didn't seem effective. Well, my opinion would be slightly different on the de-escalation part. I don't believe anything we saw was de-escalation, and certainly not when she starts to walk away, where he decides, I'm going to arrest you. That was insane, in my opinion. And I I don't know. I have a little bit of a different opinion in terms of the de-escalation part. I don't think he helped to de-escalate that at all. I think what I saw there is he took it from 0 to 100 really, really fast. He claimed he couldn't control the scene while waiting for another officer to arrive. Absolutely not correct. And he had no reason to stop the woman. Like I said, he had her information. He had the guy in there. He doesn't need to take her to the ground and MMA punch her in her face. I mean, that was insane. Body camera footage shows the interaction between the two continues to escalate. Jensen says, your ego is out of control. Just stop. I'm not doing anything wrong. Joubert brings up a domestic violence possible issue, at which point Jensen scoffs and says, okay, I'm going, and begins walking away from the officer. Joubert tells her to stop, grabs her arm to make an arrest. The woman resists, yelling, please stop. Please don't make this something it's not. She continues to ask Joubert to stop as she's pinned to a wall, and she says she had shoulder surgery. They both fall to the ground. Joubert says, put your hands behind your effing back. Sounds like he's really de-escalating the situation. Before appearing to punch her in the face. The lawsuit says Joubert slammed Jensen into a concrete driveway 3 separate times and punched her in the face. Another officer jumps in to take over the arrest while Jensen yells, he hit me in the face. I didn't do nothing. He busted my jaw. Jensen was taken to Lakeview Hospital for treatment and was found to have a fractured jaw, the lawsuit says. Joubert later requested that Jensen provide restitution to replace his pants, which had gotten torn in the scuffle, according to court documents. So this guy actually asked to have his pants bought or repaired by her. I mean, wow. The landlord of the property told police he'd been receiving complaints from the neighbors for months. He claimed Jensen would wait for her ex-husband in his stairwell when he got home from work, and after he started locking the entrance to the stairwell, Jensen would yell at him through his window wells. Evidence submitted in court shows various texts between the landlord and neighbors. On December 4th, a week before the arrest, one neighbor said, she's out there yelling, talking at him at the window. Well, if you guys are home and can talk to her. On the day of the arrest, the same neighbor wrote, she's back today. She's literally yelling at him, and he's in his car, like trapping him. The landlord claimed his tenant told him Jensen was not welcome about 3 weeks before the incident. The landlord told police he'd confronted her and she'd become defensive and angry, but he tried to avoid this type of escalation. Jensen was charged with interfering with an arresting officer, a Class B misdemeanor, and disorderly conduct, an infraction, but the Bountiful City prosecutor dismissed those charges a month later. So that's never a good thing. When the prosecutor decides to dismiss the charges, especially when you need those charges to be true to explain why what you did was okay. Written reprimand. On March 9, 2021, the Bountiful Police Department held a formal hearing concerning allegations that Joubert had violated several departmental policies during the arrest. Bountiful Police Chief Edward Beeler issued a written reprimand finding that Joubert striking Greta Jensen in the face was unreasonable and unnecessary, according to documents obtained Friday by KSL.com to a public records request. You are younger, bigger, stronger, have a higher skill level, uninjured. She said she was injured and had officers visually arriving. All the things I said right there, I did not pre-read this article. Okay, we'll let y'all know that. But he saw the officers arriving. This is exactly what I'm saying. And again, I hope what this chief should have done was said, we need additional training. We need to help these guys, first of all, deal with the stressors. Because part of this is he's applying to her, I'm sure, other interactions he's had with much more dangerous people or much more aggressive people, but they all just become the same, right? And these guys just react. They have no patience. They have a very little hair trigger. And in his mind, he can't understand how he's coming across. And in our eyes, when we're watching that video that we just watched, we can understand why she's while she wasn't compliant by any means necessary, I don't necessarily believe he had grounds to arrest her or do any of the things that he ended up attempting to do, nor was it necessary for him to physically put her on the ground. It just wasn't. Additionally, Beeler found that just prior to Joubert striking her in the face, Joubert told her to put her hands behind her back. She was physically unable to comply with that command as you were on top of her and pinning her arms to her chest. Also, Joubert released an arm he had in control to punch Jensen in the face, the reprimand says. 5 officers involved in reviewing the aspects of the case had similar observations, according to the reprimand. Every one of those officers said this incident looks bad and that they would not have used that level of force in that situation. That is 5 reasonable officers suggesting that they would not have used that level of force. Further investigation was reasonable and that the further detention was appropriate, the police chief said after it was alleged Joubert did not have a lawful reason to detain Jensen. In addition to the written reprimand, Joubert was instructed to attend a remedial defensive tactics class. Buehler also wrote to Joubert saying, "These actions appear to be out of character for you, as there are no other disciplines regarding your use of force or treatment of the public." In the deposition for Jensen's lawsuit, Joubert said he disagreed with the final findings of his hearing, saying, "Given the exact situation I was put in, I feel that what I did was reasonable and necessary." He said he had no regrets and does not believe there's been a time in his career where he's used force in a way he didn't think was right. That's a little concerning, especially since he's back out there. Jensen's civil lawsuit against Joubert remains ongoing. She is seeking damages of $1 million plus attorney fees and punitive damages. Jensen said Bountiful offered her a $20,000 settlement, but she turned it down after she was advised the city was lowballing her, she told KSL.com. She said the city later offered her a $115,000 settlement, which she also rejected. Wow, $20,000 to $115,000. That is crazy. So, I mean, wow, that's all I could say. You know, and I agree to the lawyer. A cop has a higher skill level in violent manipulation, official oppression, and escalation. Well, yeah, H squared. It wasn't quite like that. It was a situation where he was called to the scene because she apparently now, she was involved in essentially a bad breakup and she wasn't handling it well. She was doing some things that were not appropriate, but basically, officer gets called to the scene and for her allegedly yelling at her ex-husband or soon-to-be ex-husband in his car. Apparently, she'd been there and would come there and yell and fight with him. And apparently, when this officer, as you see him, he walks up and essentially just takes it from 0 to 100 like real fast. And he ends up taking her to the ground and punching her in the face. And then afterwards takes a really big interest in all the things she'd been doing, to which he was somewhat interested in it. But the issue is he was very aggressive, in my opinion, a little bit overly aggressive than probably what he needed to be, causing this thing to escalate. And eventually the lady decided, I'm going to walk away. And he said, no, you're not. I'm placing you under arrest. And again, he had other people coming to the scene. In my opinion, what he should have probably done was just said, hey, step off to the side. I've got other people coming. We need to talk, settle down, and maybe go on and try to talk to the gentleman inside to see what was going on. And because the reality was, he would be the one, since it's a misdemeanor offense, the cop can't arrest unless they see the misdemeanor occurring. So he would need to go talk to them and see if there was any visual evidence of a bruise or a hit or something like that. And then if there wasn't, I mean, it might be something that he could cite if there's a noise ordinance violation or something like that because she's yelling too loud or causing a disturbance. But it certainly didn't need to rise to the level of what we saw there. That was just insane. So, anyways, that's our 2 cases there that we covered. We covered obviously the Tyrone Tucker and H squared. If you want to go back and watch at the beginning here, we covered the court TV bit where Vinnie Politan takes down Tyrone Tucker's prosecutors. Really, really good stuff. Where he calls out the prosecutors for their unethical way that they acted in closing arguments, and he calls them out, lays them out pretty good, making it clear that what they did, he wasn't comfortable with what they did and the way they tried to represent things in the closing arguments. Something I was happy to see Vinnie Politan commenting on. But check that out. It's worth checking out for certain. Yep, and there it is. So, but and then we were watching this. So, I'll leave it at that. But I guess does anybody have anything else? Any other questions they want to talk about before we end this thing? Like I said, my goal is to go about 2 hours. I'll come in with a I have a playlist of videos. We could probably go on for another few hours and watch all the I'm constantly playlisting them up to have something each evening for us to watch and talk about. We've I've got some interesting things coming up over the next few days for the next few shows. My goal, like I said, is to try to do this every single night if I can. There will be some nights I won't be able to do it, and I'll have to let you guys know that. But as of now, I'm planning to I'm going to try to start doing this at 10 o'clock if I can, as opposed to 9. I think 9 was a little bit audacious, and it just isn't going to work for me. So, let's see here. The Rush trial yet later. Yeah. Oh yeah. I'll be streaming it tomorrow. Absolutely. The afternoon, I already did the afternoon session. I'm behind on it. I was streaming it. So I won't necessarily be restreaming it to watch it. I think I'm just going to catch up on it. Try to run it at like double time speed for myself since it's already up. I won't restream it again on the channel. I guess I could, and I need watch time still to get to my to get the final. I'm about 400 hours till I get to the final. That's all I need right now to fully monetize the channel. So, really doesn't hurt to be streaming things, especially if people come in and out and watch. It gets a couple hours of watch time for me. But I've already got that up, so I will be streaming it, of course, in the morning because I have. The trial doesn't start till 11. So, or I guess, 9 o'clock Eastern time, 11 o'clock their time. So therefore, that gives a little bit extra time in the morning. I might take that time to catch up. Maybe I'll air some of the afternoon or run it at double time. That we can do that, but we'll be definitely covering day 4 tomorrow for certain. So hopefully, if you guys are on, stop in, say hello. Dolores, stop in, say hello. We had a good chat going in the morning. So it'll be kind of like the same thing. The afternoons, I end up having to go mobile where I'm monitoring the chat, but I'm out doing various different things and out, making money and doing things with my kids. Sometimes the afternoon conflicts, I have to watch it and go mobile and chat. So I'm not visually there, but I run the trial anyways, so I can jump in and out. And if people are in there watching, I like to jump in and chat, see if somebody says hi or says something, because I'm normally listening to it. Or this afternoon, I got really busy and I wasn't able to. I watched the first hour of the afternoon, and I've still got to catch up on the rest of it. But like I said this morning, wasn't a good morning for the defense, in my opinion. Now, this afternoon, there was a gentleman that was on there. I noticed it was the same guy the whole afternoon. So I don't know. It seemed like the defense really was going in depth. I'm not sure what was going on. So I'm looking forward to catching up on that and finding that out, and then being ready for tomorrow to see what else comes. Of course, I'm anticipating that the state will be done with their case by the end of this week, because I think the judge said that it was set to go till March 8th. So I'd imagine the state will be wrapping up their case by the end of this week, or if not early next week. I'm anticipating Hannah Gutierrez is going to have to testify, given the way this trial is going. But maybe they won't have her testify. I don't know. I mean, that might be a bad idea given what I've seen. But I have a feeling that she might be testifying. They might feel like she needs to get up there and explain some things. But we'll see. And if that happens, that's why I would say, that'll take a couple days, and we'll be wrapping that case up by the end of next week. So that's where we stand there. So without further ado, guys, I guess if there's nothing else, Oh, it's the Dolly operator, Justin Mary. I need to watch. Yeah, I missed that. Yeah, I know that I knew it was somebody important because, like I said, he was on there the entire afternoon. So I don't know if video got shown or what. I know I need to go on and watch it. So, but I have it up. It's there. So jump in there. It's up in its entirety. That's why I think I'm going to get back and watch it when I get off here. So try to get caught up, watch a little bit before I go to bed, and then get up in the morning. I'll have a few hours. Like I said, I may run it back or run some of it back in the morning while we're waiting for trial to go live, depending on if I'm still behind. And go from there. So with that said, guys, tomorrow night we'll be back. Tomorrow we're going to be watching, I think, a sentencing hearing tomorrow. It's going to be an interesting case. That's what I think is going to be the flavor. It's going to be a sentencing hearing for a auto accident, DUI act. Well, they don't know if it was DUI. Man fled the scene of an accident. He's facing up to 30 years in prison. He's put himself at the mercy of the court. And yes, absolutely. Thank you, Dolores. And we're going to watch it and see what happens with the sentencing hearing, how much time he gets. He's asking for 7 years, which is what I guess at some point in the case they thought that might be the case. That the family is asking for 20 years. So, and the possible maximum is 30. So we're going to take a look at that case, watch some of the sentencing hearing on that. And then we'll go from there, see where it goes from there. So if you guys have something or a suggestion to watch, send it to justiceisaprocess@gmail.com. Let me know if you have a clip you want me to play. It's all flexible. Like I said, it's all meant to talk and interact. So come with your questions. If you got questions about Tyrone Tucker, if you got questions about another case, if you want to hear a thought, whatever, or check it out. So that's tentatively what we're going to have. I might switch it up if I find something else that I think is more interesting, but I think that's going to be what we're going to watch. It's about 2 hours long, so it'll fit perfect with how long I want to go. So that'll be tomorrow at about 10 o'clock Eastern time. So anyways, I will see everyone tomorrow, hopefully, for day 4 of the Rush trial. And until then, guys, let justice prevail.